This video is sponsored by Comics Price Guide, the world's largest and most accurate online community for comic book value information. Visit them today using the link in the description. Reggie here, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. I have the luxury of talking to a lot of collectors every single day, literally from around the world. And one of the things that I've gathered from these interactions that I've had is that some people are feeling a little uneasy about the future as it relates to the hobby. They are uncertain because of what is happening in the larger economy, what's happening with values of comics, what might even be happening with their own individual jobs and families. And for these reasons and many more, people aren't necessarily going out spending crazy amounts of money on comics. And as I've mentioned in previous videos on this topic, even though we are uncertain of what could happen, that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to walk away from the hobby. And in previous videos, I've spoken about ways that folks can still be involved. Organizing your collection, getting things sorted, figuring out what it is that you have, rebagging and boarding your collection are all great ways to still be involved without spending large amounts of money. And I want to evolve that thought in this video by highlighting a couple of books that you should consider sending in to be graded if you actually have them in your collection. The reason being, you might be able to realize some value in your own collection by spending a couple of dollars. And in this video, we are going to talk about what those books might be, and we're also going to look at the math and methodology behind it a little bit later in the video. I hope you enjoy. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of examples. But before we get to the examples, I want to throw out some assumptions, and I want to keep things relatively simple because I know that you all can add the complexity to it when you get to your actual situation. So let's just assume we are sending these books to CGC to be graded. We already have a membership. We are assuming that we are going to have them do a clean, a press, and a grade, and that the books are going to have to be shipped to and from. We are also assuming that we pick these books up for cover price. So all in with those services and with the acquisition cost of the book, we are assuming a cost of $70. And again, if you do your own clean and press, you can adjust. If you send to a different grading company, you can adjust. If you pay more or less for the book, you can adjust, right? So for the sake of this, $70 is the cost that we are going to use in these examples. And so we are going to look at a handful of books, I think all of which are solid books that are likely to be in people's collections. So the very first one that we're going to look at is one of my favorite story arcs from DC. It is specifically the Hush story arc. And we are going to look at Batman issue number 609, which is the first appearance of Thomas Elliot, aka Hush. So let me go ahead and make this a little bit bigger so you guys can actually see it. Really cool cover here on the left-hand side. But what's great about comicspriceguide.com is that they not only give you the condition, but they give you the raw value by condition and also the graded value as well. So we have the ability to kind of see how this book is performing. So again, keep in mind, we are assuming a cost of $70. So if we assume that, and as we look down this list of graded values, we can try to figure out where it is that we want to draw the line in the sand. Again, if you are evaluating this comic and sending it in, you have to be able to do a dirty grade. And so we are going to do a dirty grade of this book. And based upon that, that's where we're going to figure out where this book might land. And for the sake of this example, we are going to assume that this book could come in at a 9.6, which is a near mint plus, which has a value of $95. I will admit that I would love to have a little more cushion here, but this is a good book. There is no doubt about that. And not everyone is going to have a 9.8 candidate. And so let's just assume that you have a nice book, right? And that book could get a 9.6. Having a graded value of $95 is not terrible, right? Especially again, if you're considering your cost of $70. So That's where I think I would draw the line with this one. I would love to have a 9.8, but just in case my grading is off, if it came back at a 9.6, that's not terrible either. If it came back at a 9.4 or, somewhere else, I think I would have a little bit of a problem with that. If it came back at a 9.4, your margin is a little tighter, right? At $80. That's a little too close for comfort. But, as you're doing your dirty grade, you definitely do not want to be in the 9.2 range where you're basically paying, $70 for a book that is worth $70. That's potentially not where you want to be. But again, for my comfort, I would want to be 9.6 or better. And so if you do not know how to do a dirty grade, you can search here on YouTube and you can find a couple of my videos where I actually talk about dirty grading and what goes into that. All right. So let's go ahead and look at another example here. And this next one I think is a pretty solid example. There's a lot of excitement about this character. It is a good book. There's no doubt about that. We are talking about Venom issue number 3. And this is the first full appearance of Null, the symbiote god. The run that Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman put together, I think it was fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed reading this back in 2018. I have the entire run in the collection because I was really enjoying what these two guys were doing. And so with this book, because of the values, you could potentially go a little bit lower if you happen to have a copy of this book in your collection. And if you look over here on the right-hand column, you can see that if you have a 9.8, you're in a really good spot, especially if you pay cover price for this book. The value, according to comicspriceguide.com, is $300 at a 9.8, which is not terrible. But as you go down the list, you can see that the value is still there. There is still some value in this book. Again, if you assume a cost of $70, you may choose to draw your line maybe at this 8.0, right? At the very fine level. It's a little hard to grade covers that are white covers, right? It is hard to grade those for whatever reason. So you may want to give yourself a little more cushion with this book than maybe another book where you can actually see those spine ticks and those stress lines versus on a white cover. And that's part of the reason why I'm picking a slightly higher price maybe than what we saw before. The 7.5 very fine minus, it has a value of $90, which I don't know. I feel like that's a little too close for me. But the point here is that if you do have this book in your collection already, you have a nice range of values here. If you decide to send it in for you to realize some potential, again, higher grade is always better. But if you have some that kind of fall down the list, that's not a terrible place to be. And I think that there's a lot of potential for Null. There's rumors that maybe he will be coming into the MCU. I don't know whether those rumors will prove to be true or not, but they are indeed floating out there. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at another example. This one will be a DC example again. This one is Zatanna. Zatanna. Adam Hughes had such a fantastic run on Zatanna, some amazing covers. And this book is a little bit different than the others in that I don't know that this book is a key. This is just a good book with a solid cover from a great artist. And Zatanna 15 it's a gorgeous cover. If you had 16, it would be a no-brainer to send that one in. But let's say that you don't have 16. You have 15. Is this a book that you could send in to realize some value? I think that you could. And you might, as you look at these grades over here, you may choose to draw the line around the 9.0, the very fine to near mint might be where you choose to draw the line. According to Comics Price Guide, this book has a value of $102 at a 9.0, which is not terrible. Again, you're going to assume a cost of $70. If you clean and press your own book, maybe this looks a little bit different. The math looks a little bit different. Your margin grows a little bit. So again, with this one, I would maybe stick at the 9.0 or higher. Certainly, if you could get this in a 9.8, that would be a fantastic place to be. Black covers are really tough. The great thing, unlike white covers, you can see a lot of the defects if you pay attention when you happen to be sending this book in. So again, a really cool book. And as is this one right here, Zatanna issue number 16. I was A-OK to copy of this book a few years ago. I sent it in. I decided to go ahead and send it in. I thought it could come back at a relatively high grade. And sure enough, it did. It actually came back at a 9.6. And I'm pretty thankful for that. Made a little investment into the collection and realized realized a lot of value. And I say that because, again, it was an A-OK that I didn't even have to pay for, which is a really great place to be. So let's go ahead and take a look at another example. This is a book that has been in and out of favor based upon rumors that are circulating about the character that has a first appearance here. We are talking about Astonishing X-Men issue number 6, which is the first full appearance of Abigail Brand. Lots of rumors about this character potentially appearing in the Marvels. Who knows whether that's going to be true or not? At the moment, I think this book happens to be out of favor. I don't think that people are paying attention to this one, which is why the values look the way that they do. And as you glance over here at the last column, you can see that there's a delta. There's a big delta between the 9.8 and the 9.6, a delta that is meaningful enough to me that would say, I am not sending this book in unless I have a near perfect copy, right? If I don't have a 9.8, I would not send this book in at all, because you don't want to be in the 9.6 or the 9.4, right? Because potentially the cost does not get offset by the value that would be realized. And so if you happen to have this book, take a close look at it. Make sure you have no spine ticks on it. Don't have, beer goggles when you look at this book. Realistically, look at these comics and grade them based upon what you see. Don't ignore the defects. Don't assume that the grader will miss the defects. Pay attention to them. If you happen to have a really nice copy of this book, you can see that a 9.8 is a really great place to be. So again, just a couple of examples of some awesome books that if you happen to have in your collection, you may opt to send in to grade to realize that value, which enhances your collection. I think the math for this is all relatively straightforward, and many of you have probably already figured it out by now. But essentially what we are talking about is acquisition cost plus the cost of services to be rendered, subtracted from the value of the comic, gives you the net difference. And that net difference is essentially what you're going to be evaluating. If that number is a big number, that means that you have some true untapped potential for that comic, and that might be one that you send in. If that net difference is a small number or a negative number, potentially that is a book that you don't want to invest more dollars into. Taking it a step further, if your acquisition cost is essentially cover price of, let's say, $3.99, you're in a really good spot versus if you paid $100 for that comic, maybe because it was a variant or something like that. If you have the ability to clean and press your own comics, your math will look different. If you decide to go with the local presser versus using CCS or CGC, your math will look a little bit different. But hopefully what I've been able to do is to talk a little bit about the types of books that you want to look for, but then also talk a little bit about the math. And my hope is that you can apply what I've spoken about to your own situation, to your own books, and make really good decisions about where and how you want to invest into your collection. If there are things that I've said in this video that have been helpful to you, or you might even disagree with, I want to encourage you to leave your thoughts behind down in the comment section. If you found the video helpful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Lastly, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, Comics Price Guide. Please visit them using the link down in the description. Take care. Dirty rapper, rolling.